Hi guys, most reasonable people can listen to a question, think in their mind for an answer, and then present some sort of coherent response. The answer we receive from politicians may not always be an honest one, but we expect something related to policy or legislation if that's part of the question. Donald Trump is not a normal human being. Here he had a relatively simple question put to him and he crashed and burned. The former president and his campaign team used to attack Joe Biden over his inability to keep his mind on track. Trump, frankly, is no better. Have a listen to this.
If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue.
I don't actually think he knows what he's talking about here. It's just going to get worse.
Very important issue, but I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare.
What the hell does that mean? Childcare is childcare, like Brexit means Brexit.
There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by...
What numbers? She didn't ask you about numbers. She asked you about legislation. What legislation would you push as president after November?
Taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to.
What the hell is he talking about? Taxing foreign nations? What's that got to do with childcare?
But they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have...
I think he actually thinks that he's talking about trade here. He doesn't know he's actually not talking about trade, or he shouldn't be talking about trade. He should be talking about childcare. Does he actually know what childcare means? Because now he's talking about trade.
A very substantial tax when they send product into our country.
Yes, he's talking about trade, products. We're meant to be talking about childcare.
Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on.
We're meant to be talking about childcare. You're asked about childcare and you're talking about deficits
in our country, because I have to stay with childcare. I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be
What plan? It was a word salad. You talked about childcare being childcare. You talked about taxing other nations. You talked about trade. You talked about deficits. You didn't actually mention in any real way childcare. You didn't actually talk about childcare. Does he actually know what childcare means?
be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive.
It's not, relatively speaking, childcare is not expensive. I don't know what childcare actually is, but if you say it's expensive and that's bad, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're actually going to make it not bad.
Compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in, we're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help.
So it's also childcare abroad. He's going to consider childcare in the United States, and then he's going to, when we sort it out in the US, then we'll consider extending childcare to the rest of the world. Okay.
Other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Who the heck is clapping? I'm just thinking, unfortunately, they didn't go back to the person who asked the question, but I can imagine she's just shaking her head, going, what the hell was that? I asked you about childcare, and you talked about trade, you talked about deficits, you talked about the numbers. The numbers will be fantastic. Does this guy have a functioning brain? Like, he didn't used to be like this. Back in 2020, back in 2016, he was able to answer questions. He didn't tell the truth, but he was able to actually listen to a question, understand what somebody was talking about, and then respond to it. This is really bad. He doesn't actually know what childcare is. Or he just doesn't register in his mind about what it is. It's not a difficult concept. Surely your daughter, you have a daughter, you have grandchildren, I believe. Surely they have mentioned childcare from time to time. You've been a politician for a number of years. Surely you've heard the term childcare once or twice, and the problems related to it, the lack of availability, the cost of it. This is insane. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.